Perfect. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. We've got the growth team on the back end, making sure folks are continuing to be added to the session and taking attendance. So good evening, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Hope everyone's having a great day, a great evening. For those who are first-time attendees to our Amplify session, welcome. Thank you for being here. My name is Hayden Ron. I serve as the Senior Director of Fraternity Growth. For those who have continually showed up to Amplify, thanks for being here again tonight. I'm seeing a lot of names that we met this past week at LI in Milwaukee, and I know myself and the growth team are still running a lot of good momentum off of a lot of good energy from LI, from our recruitment symposium to our panel on Saturday morning. Thanks again, Marco from the Purdue chapter, for stepping up and being part of that panel with myself, Jacob, and Mark. And then obviously our breakout sessions, our one-on-one sessions, and all that good stuff. And we are just a few days away from August, and what that means is we are only a few weeks away from the fall semester. So there's a lot of good stuff happening, a lot of excitement going on our team's end, and so we're excited to be wrapping up here this week, and then next week, actually wrapping up next week, excuse me, with our Amplify DU training program. And there's a few reminders here at the end of tonight to kind of remind you all of what the next really 10 to 14 days is going to look like when it comes to Amplify DU and what our expectations are for each of the chapters. So for tonight, we are talking about training your members. And so we spent the first three sessions, session one, creating that foundational philosophy of what recruitment should look like, that 365 mindset. What does that mean? How can that be effective? Why is that important for our chapters? We then transition into talking about what are some myths, what are some things that we hear constantly from chapters that just aren't necessarily true, and what is actually the truth there, and how can we help chapters work through some of those pieces, those perceived myths, those perceived challenges, those perceived barriers. And then last week we talked about how do we create that recruitment plan? What needs to be involved with it? Why are those pieces important? How do we really dive into the details? Hopefully, if you are working on your recruitment plan that you'll be submitting here in the next couple of weeks, if you haven't, encourage you to start thinking about that. Go back to that session three that we had a couple weeks ago to really dive into what does that actually look like, since we talk a lot about the planning of recruitment, and that then very much goes in line with that recruitment template that you all will be required or asked to fulfill and submit in early August. And then tonight it's about training your members. And so one quote that I love to think about is that if everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself, more or less, right? And so we have to be able to think about how we are creating our plan and how we are then training our chapter members to be successful in recruitment within the upcoming year, within the upcoming next few weeks, and then obviously as we move forward into the fall and then into the spring as well, right? And so, when I think about this in just my non-work world, obviously I'm doing a lot of this with my team of Axel, Chase, and Nam when we're thinking about getting ready for the fall, when we think about expansion, when we think about growth in our recruitment coaching, but I also think about this outside of my work with DU. As a lot of you know, I'm a high school basketball coach as well. And so we spent a lot of the off season and a lot of the preseason talking about really understanding our game plan, understanding kind of our goals and aspirations for the upcoming season, just like you all are talking about your goals and aspirations for the upcoming recruitment cycle. And one of the biggest things that we need to do as coaches, myself and my co-coaches up there at the high school, is we need to make sure everyone is moving forward together. They have the same understanding that we are addressing areas of improvement, that we are highlighting our successes, highlighting our strong points. And then obviously, for the most part, success will take care of itself going on from there, right? There's a lot of other pieces, but I think it's really important to understand like we can't be successful, or the likelihood of us being successful just doesn't work if we're not moving together as a team. And so tonight we'll talk about how do we train our members and how do we train our chapter to ensure that the plan that we have created as the VP of recruitment, as the recruitment committee, for us as alumni and advisors that we've advised and we've helped the group and the chapter create, how do we ensure that everyone is moving forward in the correct way and moving forward together? And so we'll kind of go step by step and really highlight key important pieces of that, and then be able to allow for you all to feel more comfortable as you head into August to making sure that your members are trained and that you, as the VP of recruitment and the recruitment committee members, are feeling comfortable and confident that everyone is going into recruitment in a really good space and that you have that highest likelihood of success. So first and foremost, when we're thinking about training our members, we have to understand your team. We have to understand one, who's on your team, and we talked about that. It's you, you're the recruitment committee, your alumni, your advisors, your executive board officers. But when I talk about understanding your team, I'm talking about understanding your chapter, right? And I think your team is your chapter members. It is those folks who are sitting in that room. It is those folks who are going to be at the events. It is those members of your chapter. And so the first piece and why it's really important to understand your team is that allows for you to identify the strength of your team members, right? The strength of the members in your chapter. It gives you the opportunity to put your members in the best positions to be successful, right? So if we're thinking about it, I'll just use myself and my growth team, who's also on the call with Nam, Chase, and Axel. I have to understand and know the strength of each of us individuals to know, hey, when we're put in certain positions when it comes to recruitment, we have to be able to do our best possible things to allow for us to be the most successful, right? And so, for example, if I know that Nam is the person who is just going to bring the energy and get as many people as possible to come to the event, man, I've got to make sure that I'm putting Nam in those positions to be the most successful. If I know that Chase and Axel can just sit for hours talking to a P&M, addressing concerns, getting them kind of excited, but also, talking through those challenges, I'm going to make sure Chase and Axel are put in those positions, right? If, I know that myself and maybe Nam are the ones who can close the deal, right? We can get that guy over the hump to say, hey, yes, I want to join DU, then I need to make sure I'm putting those guys in those positions. And so we have to identify those strengths, and that allows for you to be the most successful. And so that's part of understanding your team and understanding your chapter. Next, we have to know the areas of improvement. It gives you insight to where we need to spend time training, right? You have to know, hey, do I have a lot of guys who might be a little less extroverted? And so during our training session, which we'll talk about here in a second, we may have to spend a little bit more time on how do we get out there and how do we get guys out of their shell, right? Maybe I have a lot of guys who just aren't necessarily great at addressing some of those common concerns or challenges such as finances or time management or whatever the case may be. Great. I know in my training session that I'll schedule, we're going to spend some more time there. Right. And so, again, when you understand those areas of improvement, it gives you the opportunity and the insight to know where you need to spend your time training. While they might be difficult and uncomfortable during your training session, they're incredibly important to ensure that there aren't any areas that are going to prevent you all from being the most successful, right? And so if we know our strengths and can highlight those, we know the areas where we need to improve and spend time training, then we're going to be able to mesh really well and both highlight the areas in which members are going to be put in the best positions, but also give members the reps that they need to feel the most comfortable and confident as we head into recruitment. And then the last is confirm your resources, right? Ask the question, who do I have as resources outside of my members that can assist me in recruitment success? So this is the advisors on the call. This is the alumni. This is us as IHQ and the growth team staff. Your IFC can be huge resources for you all. Other members of the fraternity and sorority life community, right? Sometimes sorority members or MPHC groups or MGC groups can be huge resources, right? Because they might be able to introduce you to potential new members, or they may say, hey, we'd be happy to come to your training and do some mock one-on-ones or maybe a mock event that's going to allow for your members to feel a lot more comfortable, right? Your advisors are going to be there, and they're a huge resource because they're going to be able to keep you on track, provide some different perspective, provide some questions that you might not be thinking of, right? Your alumni, same thing. They're going to be able to provide some perspective, or they're going to be able to provide those opportunities to show up to events, have an alumni panel. Maybe they're the alumni who are willing to get on the phone with a parent or talk to parents because the parents are the ones who might be a little bit apprehensive about their son going through recruitment or accepting a bid. And so the alumni might say, hey, I can be a resource to help talk to the parent about that apprehension, right? And so that's part of your team. Everyone's a part of that team, right? You look at us as the growth team staff. How are you utilizing us as a resource, right? How are you allowing for you to say, hey, I have this question. I'm not too quite sure how to respond, or do you have any better insight? This just happened to me last night. I had a VP of recruitment who texted me about something that was going on with a potential new member. We texted a little bit and was able to provide some good insight for him and make him know, hey, what he's thinking about the path forward for this specific individual is the way in which I would approach it. Here are a couple other thoughts. And so I'm sure he feels a little bit more comfortable and confident going into that conversation. Right. And so again, knowing that your team is beyond just your chapter members, confirm what those resources are, and make sure you're feeling comfortable going into the next few weeks and hitting the ground running really strong once you guys are back on campus with those resources that you have at your disposal. So again, incredibly important to first just understand the team. So what I would do and really encourage you is within the next few days, sit down and really on paper or on a document, identify those strengths. What are the strengths of my members? What are the strengths of my chapters? Where are areas that we need to improve? And who are those resources that we need to be able to tap into? And if some of those are limiting, how do we approach some of those resources, whether it's our growth team staff member, whether it's your advisors, your alumni, whether it's an IFC vice president of recruitment, whoever the case may be, make sure that you're confirming who those resources are so you're feeling good that you understand the whole scope of who your team actually is, because everyone together is going to move forward in the right direction, and that's what we want. Next is we need to communicate the plan, right? So we have the plan, we put it in place. We'll talk next week about how we then execute the plan and all the kind of intricate pieces in how we approach that when it comes to executing. But before we even get to executing, and after we've understood who our team members are and what they bring to the table and where we may need to enhance some of the areas that we necessarily are a little bit weaker at, we need to be able to communicate what our recruitment plan is, and we need to be able to do it effectively and efficiently. And so the first way and the best way to do this is you need to make sure that you are scheduling a recruitment training session with the chapter, ideally 100% of the chapter. We know that schedules can get a little tricky, but ideally everybody in the chapter is in this training session. It is hopefully in person. A lot of chapters will do this right when they get back to school, but it can be done virtually if needed. Obviously, virtual is just a little bit less, in my opinion, effective and efficient. In person's a lot better because it's that face to face. We can have a lot more conversation. You also see why here in a little bit when I kind of go through a mock recruitment training agenda, why it's ideally done in person. And then we address training needs for members, right? So this is where it's really important that when I schedule the recruitment training session with the chapter, this is where I'm going to talk about the plan. This is where I'm going to address those training needs. This is where I'm going to talk about the strengths of the chapter, or this is where I'm going to provide updates. Again, I'll kind of share through what this all looks like. But this is the most effective and efficient way to communicate the plan. We can't just throw it in the WhatsApp. We can't throw it in the group me. We can't email it out. We can't hope that our recruitment committee members are sharing what the plan is. We can't show up to the first chapter meeting and say, hey, here's our recruitment plan for the upcoming semester. No, we have to have a dedicated hour, hour and a half training session with the chapter, ideally in person. If it needs to be done virtually. You're going to have other individuals if you need them. If you need somebody like an IHQ staff member on the growth team to zoom in, right, to help out with some conversations, we're happy to do that. I've done that with chapters before. If your advisor is going to be there, let's make sure they're there. The alumni, maybe you have a guest speaker, right, because it's providing a lot of intentionality and a lot of priority and making sure that the chapter understands the importance of recruitment as we move forward. And again, it's the best way to communicate what your plan is to the entirety of the chapter without things getting lost or miscommunicated. The plan, what you need to make sure you're communicating is that your recruitment goals, your events, your expectations, right? You need to be very clear in those. You need to have members leave that training session understanding, great, we have a goal of 25 members this fall. These are when all the events are. This is my expectation as a member. I'm on the same page. My questions are answered, my concerns are addressed, my ideas were heard. All of those pieces are incredibly important because what I see time and time again is that members show a lack of engagement. And a lot of times when we dive into it, it's, well, the members don't really know the recruitment goal. They didn't really know when the events were. They were told 2 days before, or they didn't know that they were supposed to show up and they were just being told they have to show up. And if they don't show up, they'll get fined, right? You have to be very clear in those expectations, be very clear in those recruitment goals, be very clear when those events are so that everyone is on the same page. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be members who are still challenging or unengaged, right? And we can have those conversations, and we'll have those conversations next week when we're talking about actually executing the plan. But when you're able to do this and able to share the goals very clearly, share what the events are, share the expectations, it's going to give you a higher likelihood of most, if not all, of the chapter being engaged than just 50% or maybe 40% of the chapter being engaged, which I know some chapters struggle with. And it's one of the most common concerns when we talk about just chapters and member engagement as a whole. And then the last one is a good communication of the plan answers questions from the chapter members. It addresses concerns. It fields ideas, right? So when you communicate the plan, you have to be ready to get the questions from your chapter members. Why are we doing this event, right? When do I actually need to be there? What are the expectations in terms of the type of guy that we're recruiting, right? Hey, I have a concern about this event because it's on the same night as, this event or maybe this football game, or maybe it's Thursday night football and everyone's, a Chiefs fan. And so they're all going to want to watch the game instead of come to the recruitment event, right? Or have we thought about kind of this idea, right? And so what this allows for you to do is have some good back and forth with your chapter members. It allows for you to talk through those concerns. It allows for you to listen to ideas from members, right? That is good communication of a plan. That is good in getting individuals on board and on the same page. It allows for them to be heard, and do it intentionally, right? Just don't do it because you feel like you have to, but come into it knowing, hey, there are going to be questions. Let's make sure we answer there. There's going to be concerns. Let's make sure that we're talking through those and make sure that the concerns, when we address them, aren't just like, oh, we're not too concerned about it, right? Or, yep, I hear you, next question, right? Or next concern. Like actually have some mature and respectful conversations around those, and then listen to the ideas from members, right? We spend all summer, ideally as the VPs of recruitment, as the recruitment committee, thinking about how we are going to approach recruitment, both in the 365 model, but then also as we head into being back on campus. And that's only maybe four or five of us, three, four, five of us who have these ideas and are kind of in the midst of it. Let's listen to those other members. Not all ideas necessarily we need to take, but there might be a few here or there that we can add in, and that might be really smart for us. And so we need to be open-minded to that as well. And again, that's what's going to allow for recruitment to be, that's what's going to allow for a lot of buy-in from your chapter members when we have the ability to have those discussions there. So that's a big one. Next one, so recruitment training resources, unfortunately, having some back-end technical difficulties. But if you go on the Delta Upsilon website and you go under the recruitment toolkit, you'll find both the Kansas State and Purdue training resources that you all can look at. These just kind of show what both of those chapters do in terms of how they approach training for their chapters. So kind of the do's and don'ts, what questions should we be asking, what things should we be highlighting and talking about, what are some training activities that we need to be doing during recruitment. So I highly, highly encourage you to go on the DU website and check those resources out for both Kansas State and Purdue. Next are just general things to remember when we're talking about training our members. Clearly share the why. Why is chapter recruitment important, right, for the chapter as a whole? Why did the recruitment committee establish the recruitment goals that you all did? Why is the engagement as a member important, right? I have found over time that when members, or really anyone, and this doesn't necessarily just relate to fraternities, when members and anyone understand why they are doing something, why it's important, the kind of the context behind it, you have a higher likelihood of folks getting bought in, folks being engaged, right? For some chapters, recruitment's important because we have low membership, and if we don't recruit well this upcoming year, the chapter is going to be in jeopardy, right? We have other chapters say recruitment's really important because we have to fill a chapter house, right? And filling a chapter house means we have more presence on campus. It means that we're more financially stable, right? And that's totally fine. Recruitment's really important for the chapter because we want to go win, we want to go be a sweepstakes finalist next year, right? For some of those groups. Recruitment's really important because we have 40 seniors graduating. And if we don't replenish those numbers and continue to grow, then we're going to have we're going to be in a worse spot next fall. And we don't want to put future members in that position, right? And so you have to be able to clearly share why recruitment is important for your chapter, besides just well, we have to recruit because we're a fraternity and we're a members-based organization. Yes, that is true. That is important. But every chapter has a different story and every chapter is in a different place. And so we need to make sure that we're sharing that clearly to our members. We have to clearly share why we established the goals that we did, right? Of course, you have IHQ expectations and goals that you're receiving, but for a lot of chapters, and ideally for almost every chapter, those are higher, right? Your chapter goals are higher. Why did we set our goal at 25 instead of 20? Why did we want to make sure that we had half of those guys committed prior to the first day of the semester, right? We have to be able to share those goals instead of just saying, all right, we have goals, we want 25 guys, but we're kind of happy with whatever, right? Like that's not going to get somebody bought in. And like we've talked about before, it is not good for planning. And definitely what we'll talk about next week is it's not good for executing. And then why is engagement important as a member? We talk about this like recruitment is a team effort. It's going to lead to the highest likelihood of success. So we have to have individuals understand why their engagement as a participant in recruitment is important to the overall success of recruitment, right? And I think we know kind of the talking points there. We know that, hey, PNMs want to see brothers and they want to interact with brothers. They want to see themselves a part of it. Somebody might connect with Axel more than they connect with Nam, more than they connect with Chase, more than they connect with me. And if Axel's not engaged, then we'll never have the opportunity to get that potential new member engaged with Axel if he's not engaged. And so Axel has to understand the importance of him showing up, him being engaged, him making sure he's building those relationships. And then also remember, give members the tools to be successful. We can't just expect everyone to think recruitment's the number one priority or that they feel the most comfortable and confident in recruitment. Just because I felt comfortable and confident in recruitment while I was an undergrad didn't mean that my buddy James Dolan didn't feel comfortable, right? Like I knew that there were some tools that I'd have to provide him to ensure that he felt better about what recruitment looked like. So the helpful tips during the recruitment training session, what to say, what not to say, what questions to ask, what are the clear expectations, what are the do's and don'ts, what are all of those pieces that I need to make sure members have to make sure that they're successful. Again, it's just like me coaching basketball. I need to make sure my team has the tools and the things that they need to be successful in their specific position. And I need to be clear in what their position is and why that is going to lead to the highest likelihood of success for our team, in this case, for our chapter when it comes to recruitment. And then the last one is have fun and bring the energy. Marco said it best last week or at LI a couple days ago, right? When you bring the energy from the start and when you highlight the wins and when you're having fun, like that can trickle down to the rest of your membership, right? Now, what that looks like and how you bring that energy and how you have that fun is going to look different from the chapters, right? But you have to be able to have fun and bring that energy every single day when it comes to recruitment. If you're standing up in front of the chapter saying, "Oh, we've got to recruit and this is horrible and I don't know if we're ever going to get anyone and everything's going down the drain and I'm not confident in our product or I don't think anyone should join," then the rest of the membership are going to be like, well, why is Hayden standing up there saying that? But if I'm up there saying, all right, guys, like we've got a great plan, right? We're going getting 25 guys this fall, right? It's going to be challenging, but it's definitely achievable. Here's what we're doing. We're going to have fun with it, right? We've got, our kickball event coming up. Here's what I expect from you guys. Let's go win. Like, let's be competitive. Let's also, get connected with the potential new members. And at the end of it, right, we're going to go out and grab some dinner afterwards. So let's make sure we're inviting PNMs and let's just go have an awesome time at this first recruitment event when we're back coming up here in a couple of weeks, right? More likely than not, a lot of members are going to feel that energy and bring that energy, right? And so if you as the VP of recruitment, if your recruitment committee is bringing that energy as well, members are going to feel that, and they're going to want to build off of that energy and build off of that momentum. And recruitment should be fun. Like it's the fun thing we get to do. We get to invite individuals into our organization and have fun with it. Yes, there's pressure. Yes, there can be stress. Yes, there can be challenges, but also it's a ton of fun, right? When we get to go have a dinner, we get to go have a barbecue, or we get to hang out at the house and we get to invite potential new members, meet more guys to bring into the chapter. All of that stuff is fun, and all of that should bring you energy as well. So next thing I want to do to kind of wrap us up here in the last 15-ish minutes is walk through with you guys what a sample recruitment training agenda might look like. And so the reason I want to do this is because I think it's important that chapters understand that a recruitment training session and a recruitment training agenda is not 15 minutes just pulling up your recruitment plan up on a screen, going through everything, or just kind of highlighting 5 or 6 different bullet points, asking if there's any questions, and then sitting back down. That is not how you are successfully training your members or providing a recruitment training, right? I will also say that if you are sitting there as the vice president of recruitment, or you're sitting there as a recruitment committee member, or even an alumni advisor, and you're saying, I just don't know how comfortable and confident I am in facilitating this, or maybe I need to have some more discussion with somebody, please shoot me an email. Please shoot me a text. Let's meet. Let's talk. Let's go through this together. Let's make sure that we are setting you up for success. It goes back to that first slide. Understand your team. The growth team at IHQ is your team, and we want to make sure that you are set up for success when facilitating this recruitment training. There also might be opportunities for us to do a virtual training for your entire chapter. Again, it's not ideal, but if you say, hey, we think that that's going to provide the best type of training for the chapter, I'm happy to discuss that with you, right? Chase is happy to get on the phone with you. Axel and Nam are happy to get on the phone with you to talk through what that looks like. But what I do want to do is spend some time kind of sharing with you all what can and what should this recruitment training look like here. So I think first and foremost, you want to set aside probably about 60 to 75 minutes for this, right? You want to make sure it's a priority. You want to make sure members understand, hey, we're going to be talking about recruitment. This isn't just part of a chapter meeting. This isn't just, oh, we're all hanging out at a brotherhood event and we should talk recruitment. Nope, we're showing up to the classroom. We're showing up to the chapter house. We're showing up to wherever to talk about recruitment, to understand what it means to be successful in recruitment, and for you all to train your members appropriately. So first 5 minutes should be a welcome, introduce members to the training, provide an overview of what the training is going to look like. Some guys might not even know who's on the recruitment committee. Introduce the recruitment committee, right? Maybe do a little bit of icebreaker, whatever you think is going to kind of get the chapter going, get the conversation going. Definitely spend about 5 minutes doing that, getting guys prepared, getting guys ready to have a really good training session with you all. Then provide the recruitment update, right? What have you all done? Provide details on the update in terms of recruitment progress. Who is on and this can either come from you as the VP or the recruitment committee, right? Provide details on here's what we've been doing since the end of the last semester. Here's what our names list looks like. Here is how many guys we have who have bids or have accepted bids, or how many conversations have we had with guys. And based off our scaling questions, which we talked about earlier in Amplify, here's how many guys are, 90% committed, and we just got to get them the extra 10% of the way, right? So providing that recruitment progress, I think a lot of the times VPs and recruitment committees, they're hesitant to share the work that they've done for some reason, which actually can be a really good momentum builder as we talk about the recruitment plan. And it shows the chapter, oh guys, oh man, these guys have put in work. These guys have gone to Amplify sessions. These guys went to the recruitment symposium. These guys have worked with the advisors. These guys have put time and energy over the summer to start doing that outreach and start building those connections and building those relationships. And so it's really important to spend 10 minutes really talking about in detail what that looks like and what that progress is. Next, spend that next 15 minutes talking about what is the plan moving forward, right? And again, this can just be the VPR, or maybe you guys want to split this up. Vice President of Recruitment takes one area, and then you have maybe 3 other recruitment committee members take another area. Provide that detailed review of the recruitment plan. What are our goals? What are our benchmarks? What are the events overview? What are the logistics? Just because an event is at the chapter house from 7 to 9 Doesn't mean that the member should be showing up at 7. Talk about what are the logistics of that event, what can they expect at that event, when should they be there, what's the expectation of their participation, what are the responsibilities for members, right? Do different members have different responsibilities, right? What are the members' expectation and responsibilities in terms of wearing letters throughout the beginning of school? What are the expectations and responsibilities of members following up with PNMs to do those informal events, right? This is where you get into it and help them understand the why, help them understand what the engagement plan is, help them understand how are you getting to your recruitment goal and how can them as members help them get there. Right. So spending that 15 minutes and right there, you're about what, about 30 minutes in, more or less, right? And so you've had some really good conversation. Then you're going to transition into recruitment practice. So, based off your assessment of the chapters, based off what you know the areas of improvement are, or maybe based off kind of where you want to continue to hone some of those skills, have members practice recruitment specific activities and conversations. I'm a big believer that reps equal confidence, right? The more reps I have, the more confident I'm going to be when I get into that conversation with the potential new member at that recruitment event, at the tabling Meet the Greeks event, whatever the case is. I need to make sure that the guys who are having those conversations have that practice. And so maybe this is an elevator pitch. All right, everyone, like give me your 10, 15-second elevator pitch to a PNM if they're coming to a table during Meet the Greeks, right? Maybe it's a, hey, we're going to do some mock one-on-ones or mock group conversations, right? So, Axel and Nam are going to be the PNMs, Chase and I are going to be the chapter brothers, and we're going to have those conversations and do some of those pieces. This also might be a really good opportunity to say, um, hey, ladies of Alpha Z Delta, my wife's an Alpha Z Delta, so that's why I said AZD. Are 5 to 10 of you available for, 15, 20 minutes during this recruitment training session to come in and maybe do some mock conversations and then provide some feedback, right? So this is again where we're utilizing our resources. Maybe we're bringing in our advisory team, our alumni, and maybe they can help with these conversations and provide some of that feedback. But again, based off your assessment, you have to think about what are the activities, what are the conversations that need to happen that members need to get practice in, right? And giving them the reps, allowing for them to get in time feedback. We want to make sure that if there are things that need to be tweaked or mistakes that we don't want to have happen with a PNM in front of us, we take care of that in the training session rather than in front of the PNM, where ultimately, if that mistake happens, that PNM might be turned off because of something that was said, or maybe a conversation dies off and we didn't practice. Hey, what are some ways that we can get the conversation back going, either with questions or introducing him to somebody else? Right. And so this is where you, as the VP of recruitment, it's where you work with your team, yourself, your advisors, your alumni, the growth team to really understand, okay, what does that recruitment practice look like? What are we needing as a chapter in order for guys to feel confident going into recruitment? And then the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes are two different things, general discussion. So we're going to open the floor, right? We're going to say, okay, what are some general questions? What are feedback? What are ideas? How are guys feeling about this? What are things that we feel need to be addressed that maybe weren't? Are there ideas that we want to kind of switch around based off what we talked about here? Are there guys who want to step up a little bit more? Right? Hey, I really enjoyed that training session. I feel like I can be, a lot more effective in this kind of capacity when it comes to recruitment. Great. Let's have that general discussion that allows for the chapter members to be heard. And I think when folks are heard, they're more bought in, especially when you as the recruitment committee, the VPs are receptive to that feedback, receptive to those questions, and receptive to those ideas. And then closing. Take 5 minutes for the opportunity for you as the VP, for you as the recruitment committee, for the exec officers, for advisors to get the chapter ready for recruitment. What are the closing remarks? What do you want members to know, right? What do you want to highlight? What are those 3 to 4 bullet points that, hey, these are the keys to success, right? When I go out before a game with my team, I'm going to have those 3 to 4 things. Here are the keys of the game that are going to allow for us to give up to allow for us to be in the best position to win, right? And so providing that last 5, 7 minutes to talk about what that looks like. And what I would do is I would even go around and make sure everyone on the recruitment team, your advisors, your alumni are sharing words of encouragement. Hey, how are we getting ready for recruitment? And if there's other guys in the chapter who also want to share something that are going to get guys pumped up, please make sure you do that. And just close that with some really good energy, really good momentum, really good high energy there. And that's roughly around 60 minutes, depending on the conversation there. It might go longer, but that's covering all of those important pieces. It's not taking too much time, right? But you can also flex a little bit. You may say, hey, we want a little bit more time with recruitment practice, or we want more time with general discussion, or I know my chapter really is going to need to understand truly what the recruitment plan is. So instead of 15 minutes, I'm going to spend 25 minutes, right? Or everyone kind of knows who we are. And so we're just going to say, hey, and jump right into the recruitment update. Totally fine. But don't just make this a 15, 20-minute training. Definitely make this a 60, 75-minute training. If guys are crunched for time, you can do 45 minutes. I wouldn't do anything less than that, but I would definitely keep it around the 60 to 75-minute mark. So that's training your members, right? So again, we go back and kind of highlight what we have to remember. We have to understand our team. So take the next few days to understand what are the strengths of my team in terms of my chapter, in terms of those other resources I have. What are the areas of improvement, and how can we address those areas of improvement before we get back to campus or before we start having those in-person interactions with students and potential new members? And then who are my resources? Who are the people that are beyond just my chapter members who are on my team that I need to make sure I'm tapping into when I need it? We also have to understand if we go back, how do we communicate the plan? So scheduling that recruitment training session. If you haven't already, make sure you've got that set, whether that's on campus, in the chapter house, and again, if needed virtually, but not ideal. Um, and then just remember those things that we have to make sure we're covering. Why is recruitment important for us? Why did we establish goals? Why is it important for members to be engaged? And then thinking about, hey, what are the tools that we need to give members to be successful, and how are we going to bring the energy, and how are we going to have fun? And then start laying out, what does your recruitment training session look like? How do we make sure that we're utilizing the entirety of that time? How do we be intentional with that time? And how do we make sure that by the end of it, we feel like our chapter is trained and that we're moving forward together rather than scattered, or rather than members kind of feeling like, I'm not really sure what recruitment looks like, but I know it's during these dates, right? This is the opportunity for you to get your team together, to get the chapter together, so you're all moving forward in the right direction. Couple just reminders before we turn it over to see if there's any questions. Last session of Amplify is next Wednesday, August 5th at 8 p.m. So just like every other session, I'll make sure to send out that link for you all. If you want the recording of this link or any other previous links, or other or recording links, feel free to shoot me an email. Happy to send those over to you, or you can find them on the Amplify page of the DU website. 2026-27 chapter recruitment plan is due to me. Email ron@deltu.org by August 9th, Sunday, August 9th. All chapters must submit this. We will send a reminder next week. We will send a reminder probably on the 8th, probably on the 6th or 7th of that week. And then chapters who fail to submit that will be receiving follow-up on that Monday the 10th, making sure that we're getting those chapter recruitment plans. And what that allows for us to do is it allows for us to review those. It allows for us to come back to you and your team and say, okay, here are some feedback pieces. And so we want to make sure we have ample amount of time before guys get back to school and chapters get back to school to address some of those pieces there. So please, please, please submit those by Sunday, August 9th. You can submit them now if they're prepared, so you don't need to wait till that weekend. But if you kind of have that ready, feel free to submit anytime between now and August 9th. And reminder to reach out for assistance. That's what we're here for. A lot of you have my phone number, 951-553-9285. My email, ron@deltu.org. Myself and our growth team, we're here to assist you all. We're here to help out. We're here to make sure that we are providing you the resources and the coaching that you need to be successful as we head into the next year, which we are really excited for. And again, this is our job, and we want to make sure that you guys are getting the assistance you need. So with that being said, I will turn it over to you all to see if there are any questions. I'm not sure if anything got popped up in the chat. Appreciate you, Axel. And Chase going back and forth a little bit. Yes, obviously, Chase can help you with facilitating, so can help you run that session. And if you guys have questions there, but I'll see if there are any questions. Yeah, Chase, what do we got?
I have a question that I hear a lot. Yes, I am a member of the growth team, but I thought I would chime in with this. Let's say I'm a VPR and there's kind of a culture in my chapter where everybody just expects me to do the recruiting.
Yeah,
Say I was a rock star recruiter, got 15 guys last year. Everyone was like, yeah, Chase will handle it this year.
yeah. So what do you do? Is that the question?
Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, so what do I do? Yeah, so I think it's one, it's great self-awareness, Chase, as the VP, that you're saying, hey, everyone thinks this is me. First and foremost, you got to surround yourself with the right people. You've got to find the guys in your chapter who are going to be able to help you, and there are guys in the chapter who are going to say, hey, I know it's not all Chase's job, right? And so those are the guys that are typically going to be on the recruitment committee. Be open and honest about how you're feeling about that, right? With the committee and with your executive board officers, with your advisors or the alumni, right? To make sure that guys are aware of like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. These are the things that I'm hearing. I just want folks to know like that is not the case whatsoever. And that 15 could easily be 20 or 25 if it wasn't just me, right? So also helping individuals kind of see, hey, if it's more than just you think I'm doing it, then we could have an even bigger or larger recruitment this upcoming year. I think then we go back to understanding your team, right? Understand everyone in the chapter and the role that they can play and the responsibilities that they can have, right? So while yes, Chase, excuse me, you as the VP may go out and recruit a majority of the guys by nature of you being a really, really good recruiter. That doesn't mean that my role player coming off the bench doesn't need to come in and still, get his 7 and 10. Right. It just doesn't mean that. It just means that he needs to fulfill his role, and you, as the vice president of recruitment, need to be able to share that that's the expectation and how he's going to get there, right? And I think then the recruitment training session, these are why they're really important because you can have those discussions around what that looks like, what the expectations are. Because sometimes it's, well, Chase is just going to do everything because he's a really good recruiter because expectations weren't set from the beginning, that you needed the support of everyone. And the vision of what that support looks like isn't shared either, right? And so if you're able to really sit down and find those guys who are going to support you from the get-go, help the chapter understand what the vision looks like if the entirety of the chapter is engaged and what everybody's roles and responsibility is, that's going to help address some of those discussions and some of those questions. And some light bulbs might go off for some members, right? And they might say, oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense, right? Because some members might just be saying that because they're like, man, I don't want to get in his way. Like, he's way better at recruitment than I am. But in reality, you're sitting there being like, yeah, but you're going to help me because of X, Y, and Z. And so you need to just understand what that looks like and have those conversations accordingly.
Thank you. Yeah, like a general member can come off the bench and get two guys, which is more than none, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Chase, you might be getting, 12. Those extra two, right, is 14. And then this other guy's getting three, right? And we've already exceeded our 15 that maybe guys thought you were just going to get. Awesome. All right. So as always, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me, Ron at deltu.org, or shoot me a text 951-553-9285. Really appreciate everyone for continuing to be present at Amplify. Looking forward to closing us out next week. If you have questions about your recruitment plan and that template, feel free to reach out as well. But really looking forward to these next few weeks. Obviously, you guys should be in the thick of recruiting with our philosophy of 365, but I know things amp up and ramp up once we get back to campus here in the next few weeks. So really appreciative of you all. Good to see a lot of familiar names that I was able to officially meet in person this past week at LI, and really looking forward to the next few weeks, like I said, and we'll see you next week for our last session of Amplify. Have a good night, everyone.